Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning, JC. How are you, my man?
All right, good, Shane. Just like you, away from Gator Country for the weekend. About to head back today, and I hear we're heading for a massive heat wave, QB, in North Central Florida. It's going to be in the upper 80s, so there's going to be a lot of outdoor activity if you can see that happening, which means people going out and watching Gator sports or whatever it is. Because it's going to be hot, my man. It's going to be really hot here. What's it like in Texas?
I haven't been outside in the last couple of days, so I don't know. I assume it's so we'll see. But make sure you drink plenty of fluids with all your athleticism and athletic events you got going on, JC.
QB, you just got back from Houston. What was that like?
Well, it was cold in Houston, very cold, about 40 degrees. We lost our opener 33-12. We had a 6-0 lead, and then had a chance to go up 9-0 and missed a chip shot field goal, and then it went downhill after that. We also after we scored, we had a miscue on the kickoff, and so if you don't kick it to a certain point on the field, they take the ball to the plus 45 territory, and then that was it. We didn't play well. It is what it is. You move on to the next game. But the XFL had some exciting games this weekend, and I'm sure it will continue to do that. I don't know what's going on with the internet service here, but we're on the phone line, so that's a good thing. JC, outside of that, Gator basketball gets clobbered in Arkansas. I think most people anticipated that. Did Alabama win? Are they still number one or no?
Alabama beat Georgia by 50 some odd points.
Oh, that's
right. It's the second time they've beaten somebody by over 50 points this season at home. Vanderbilt was the other victim. Vanderbilt, to its benefit, however, did win in something like its 5th straight game. They beat Auburn on a last-second buzzer beater. Tennessee was whacked by Kentucky, who seems to have found its footing. Kentucky is now won a couple games and seemingly has played themselves back into the tournament after winning on the road at Mississippi State earlier in the week, and then came home and really put it on Tennessee. Tennessee was overrun by Kentucky, and that's the thing with Tennessee, isn't it? I mean, if you want to talk about a team that's never been consistent at this time of year, that's always had so much hope and promise, and then just falls flat on its face, toward the tournament time of the year, that's Tennessee. Tennessee is that team. The Gators, I've pretty much folded the 10 on. They just don't have anybody who can score points. So this is going to be one of those years you just kind of move on. And then you've got Mississippi State beating Ole Miss. LSU was beaten by somebody. They're an awful team. South Carolina's an awful team. Right now, I'm looking at 6 teams out of the SEC making the tournament, and Alabama right now with the I guess you could call it pre-tournament prognostication, is considered the top seed, with Houston as the number 2-1 seed out of the 4. Purdue and Purdue, Houston, Alabama, and Kansas would be considered your 1 seeds right now, with Alabama on the top line. So they recovered from their loss against Tennessee by just blowing out Georgia. Georgia doesn't have a very good team when it comes to playing against teams like this. And so you're very top heavy in this conference. That's pretty much what we're looking at. 6 teams right now at this point.
Yes, indeed. John says here on Facebook Live, how about the Gators softball with the #1 offense through 10 games? He's excited to see them play UCLA and Oregon. I didn't even know we played them this year. We do, but JC, did you know that?
I think that, if of all the teams that have early season matchups that are interesting, softball always seems to be one of the sports that has many of those. Of course, they do play the cupcake teams because everybody does. But softball does play these Western teams, it feels like, during the early part of the season pretty consistently. I didn't look at the schedule, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did. And, right, again, we've talked about this. Softball is going to be really strong in the SEC.
Yeah, they go out to their California. I forgot. They missed that for COVID for a couple years, but it's back in Palm Springs. They do play Cal State Fullerton, UCLA, UC Riverside, and Oregon out there. There's I guess we're never going to play in it because we're from the state of Florida, but there's a huge tournament down in the St. Pete area where there's like 20-something schools. Alabama, I know, plays in it every year. I think UCLA was in it, but boy, if Florida State plays in it, it's some good softball. But yeah, they sit at 10-0 right now, and they are just mashing the softball. Just won the tournament there in Gainesville, and then they head out to California this week which is always good for recruiting purposes. Yeah. So they don't start conference play until March 17th when the Missouri Tigers roll into town is when they start conference play. So, and then baseball, obviously, cranked up this weekend over there at Conjuring Ballpark. You didn't go out there. You're out of town, right, Jason? You didn't go to any ball games?
Yeah. No, I didn't make it to baseball, but I did see that they pretty much ran it up on whoever was in town. I didn't even know who they played because I just don't pay attention to these games because they just don't seem very competitive. But it's good to see Florida doing what they're expected to do. That's the whole point of this exercise when they play teams like this, is to just basically run them out of town and wait for the next team to come in. Because basically teams have to come here to play at this time of year because of the weather for the most part, at least up north. And so there's going to be really good warm weather. And Florida baseball, if you want to go out and watch some baseball, is a good idea. And they will be very good. I think Florida, this is a time where we finally, I think, going to see some consistency from the baseball team this year. I'd like to think that. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a very difficult conference. And it's gonna be very competitive, so that should be entertaining to watch.
Yeah, baseball. They ran through Charleston Southern 13-3, 16-2, and 8-0. They got South Florida coming up for a 2-game set back, one in Gainesville, one in Tampa. Then the Bearcats of Cincinnati roll in the weekend of 24th through the 26th. Then JU for a Tuesday, Wednesday. Then the Miami Hurricanes into town. March 3rd through March 5th. That will be a packed ballpark. They start conference play March 16th against your boys, JC. They're rolling into town. Okay. Are they any good in baseball, by the way?
I think they're better. I don't think they're considered to be a team that's going to challenge for any SEC championship, but they should be able to make the SEC baseball tournament like most teams should. But they should be better. I think they are improving, but I don't see Alabama as being a team that would challenge for the league title during the regular season or even in the tournament. But anything can happen, I guess. You get a hot pitching staff and you can go far. But, we'll have to see how this all pans out. It's still very early for me.
Let's give a shout out to the Florida Gator women's and men's swimming teams, swimming and diving. They won both the men's and women's SEC championships this weekend. First time the programs have won them both since 1993. That's kind of surprising, as dominant as they've been in swimming, to go that far back, win both in the same year. So congratulations to Anthony Nesty and the athletes on those squads. JC, anything else around the sports world? I mean, did you tune into the Daytona 500 at all?
No, I didn't watch one lap. It doesn't interest me. It takes hours and hours and hours, and really the only benefit I would get out of watching an auto race is the last 2 or 3 laps, maybe, to see who wins. So I didn't watch any of that. I did watch John Rahm win his 5th tournament out of the last 9 he's entered. I watched John Rahm win his third tournament since January the 1st. And I tell you, between him and Max Homa, that was, those guys are the best in the world right now. They just are. I mean, it goes at peaks and valleys. You could throw Scotty Scheffler in there. But that's what I watched the golf out in LA, and Rahm is just really just having his way with the tour right now. When you win, think about this, winning 5 out of the last 9 tournaments on tour, with the talent that's on the tour right now, that guy is out of his mind good right now. So that's entertaining to me. I'd rather watch that than a bunch of cars run around the track. I will tell you something I did read over the weekend that was a lot more interesting than the race was, to me, it was a column in the USA Today, QB, that talked about, when Oklahoma and Texas come to the SEC and the scheduling format and what they feel like they're going to probably do with that scheduling format. And at this point, it seems like the most likely model, according to the USA Today article that I read, would have each team against 6 rotating opponents with 3 permanent rivals, which would mean 9 games in the conference, which I do agree with. Because under the 9-game model, teams would get at least, 1 home game and 1 road game against every SEC opponent during a 4-year span. And I think that's important because we have seen with the 8-game model, a lot of teams just don't play each other. Texas A&M has not played Georgia since they joined the league in 2012, if you can believe that. Now, COVID took care of the game they were supposed to play, but they didn't play. Mississippi State and Florida have only met once since 2010 and have only played in Gainesville, I think, 4 times since 1990. That's 33 years. That's ridiculous. And basically, it's just better with a 9-game schedule if you're interested in conference teams playing against each other. So that's what I read. I thought that was interesting. A 6 rotating opponent schedule with 3 permanent rivals, and Florida's 3 permanent rivals would be who, QB?
Oh, it's going to be Auburn, Tennessee, and Georgia.
No, it's going to be Kentucky, probably, Georgia, and Tennessee. Although Auburn, they could throw them in there. I think that would be fine. But the LSU is coming off. They wouldn't be a permanent. And so your permanent rivals would probably be, according to the article, I mean, this is not set in stone, but it would be Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. So the only team that really has the same permanent opponents in a 9-game schedule as it had in an 8-game schedule is Alabama, and their 3 permanent opponents would be Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. So to me, 9 games makes sense. I think it's great. You get a better variety of games. You have increased competitiveness. I mean, let's face it, we've had a top-heavy conference here lately, and I think this would breathe some fresh air into what has become kind of a repetitive model that seems the same teams go a decade or more between road trips against the conference opponent. And that's just not smart. I don't like that at all. So, mean, Florida played Texas A&M 3 times in College Station, and Georgia hasn't gone once. That doesn't make sense to me. That just doesn't. So that's not right, and I think they're going to make that change.
Well, what doesn't make sense to me, and Tony has a question mark by it as well on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. Why would Kentucky be one of our permanent teams? Makes no sense.
I mean, you've played them every year forever.
Yeah, but, I mean, Kentucky, really?
No, that's just what the article said. I mean, they may not do that. They may make – I mean, they are looking for – you are right about geography. I think they are looking for geographical commonality. You're going to have Arkansas, the Texas teams play. Oklahoma and Missouri and Arkansas will be all probably together, tied up together. So, I mean, they're going to definitely move more geographically closer together. Some of the permanent opponents, sure.
Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Doreen Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker M.F. Paris, will value fast, friendly, reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411. Help your dreams come true. Speaking with JC on the Titan More Hotline, Seth Harp will take over in the second portion of today's program. On the Titan More text line, Jimmy says, hey, guys, I heard there was a lot of issues this weekend with the pitch clock in college baseball. I did hear that. I don't know a whole lot about it. JC, did you hear anything about that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay. I don't know what the issues were, but I have heard that for sure. Greg says, is this live or recorded? It's live. We're live. You're looking live, Greg, at 2 pictures. We had some internet issues that JC's out of town on the phone, and the internet wasn't working great, so I called in. but we are live for sure. Back to golf, JC. We're all over the place this morning. Did I win the golf picks again?
I think you were closest with the winner being, well, not the winner, but Max Homa getting a solo second. Do you know, QB, he's won a bunch of tournaments. I think he's won 5 in his career on the PGA Tour, something like that. But he's never finished second by himself until yesterday. And I'll tell you, the guy never gives up, man. He is fighting to the end. He was down 2 strokes on the last hole, had a chip shot that should have gone in the hole, would have given him a birdie, putting him 1 stroke behind and forcing Rahm to putt, which he easily did, but on that 18th hole at Riviera. But Rahm is, I mean, I just can't believe that here's a guy that's won 3 times since January the 1st and has won 5 out of his last 9 tournaments. I mean, that's, if he's not number 1 in the world, who would be? And so clearly he is.
Well,
and that's just amazing.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and when you're winning that consistently, week in and week out against the best players in the world, it's very impressive. There's no question about that. So anyway, there's not a whole lot to talk about in sports right now. It's kind of that weird kind of dead period, in my opinion. I mean, you got college basketball still going on. You got, a little bit of golf. You got some NASCAR, but there's just not a whole lot to talk about. But in the meantime, we did get a huh?
No, I'm listening. Sorry, go ahead.
Chris from Cottondale on the Titan Mark text line says, when does spring practice start? What position battles interest y'all this spring? The spring game is April 13th, I believe, that Thursday. So usually you start about a month or so before. So it should be cranking up, I would think, first part of March. I think positions everywhere. Again, I don't know what you take out of spring ball, but I think there's going to be a competition everywhere for this play.
Well, just to answer Chris's question directly, if I could, it's just basically quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. I mean, we've got running backs. They're going to have a massive offensive line, I guess. I don't know if that translates into an effective offensive line, but it might. But wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. That's for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's always going to be quarterback, but defensively, I mean, you got to remember, JC, defense was not very good last year. Hasn't been very good in a long time.
I mean, they haven't been good in a couple of years, QB. It's not just last year. These guys haven't been.
No, I said it in several years they haven't been good. So
yeah.
This is also from Chris on the Titan Mark text line. It says Chris Jans from Mississippi State is an outstanding coach, absolute grinder. Yeah. Always wanted forward to get him, but knew they wouldn't because he had some baggage. But the guy can flat out do it and will only improve that program.
Yeah. 100% right. Very good observation there, Chris. I agree. This guy, they come out the gate in the SEC, something like 1-7. They're now 6-8, but the point is they're playing their way into this tournament. If they can get a couple more wins in the regular season and maybe 1 or 2 in the tournament. Mississippi State plays a very physical defense. If they were better offensively, they'd be a really dangerous team. But in his first year, I think he has exceeded expectations in Starkville. And
but
they won a big game at Ole Miss.
That's how he's coached everywhere he's been, though. They're not going to score points. Yeah. They're defensive minded.
Well, no, they are very defensive minded. That's true. I mean, that's true. But they got 2 big guys down low. That Mississippi State is a dangerous team. I wouldn't say they're scary, but I'd say they're dangerous. They can take you to the buzzer.
All right, back to the pitch clock here, Greg says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melon Law. He says the pitch clock and no shift rules go into effect this year in Major League Baseball. I was not aware of that. I didn't know that you cannot shift anymore, did you?
No, I didn't know that. I think it's I don't care. I mean, look, the thing is baseball's got to do something about trying to keep people's attention. I literally watched one game just to see how it would feel for me last year on ESPN. It lasted 3 hours and 20 minutes, and there's a game on 6 out of 7 nights a week. And to me, I just don't understand the programming and the expenditure behind a game that takes that long on a daily basis. So, I mean, if you're going to keep my attention, and I think as we all age, attention deficit disorder is certainly a factor in our world. it's hard to watch a full baseball game. It just is. You've got to do something to make it move. You just do.
But I don't understand why people made such a big. I mean, I played baseball and played it my entire life till I went to college, and I do not understand why people made a big deal about the shift. I mean, that's no different than in football outlawing an unbalanced set or saying you cannot blitz, you cannot bring four from one side.
Yeah,
I don't understand that at all.
Well, QB, I think it's just I agree with you. I don't know why that has even become an issue. I don't know why it's an issue. It shouldn't be. It's just defense trying to do its job. And why is that a problem? Well, it's because they want offense. They want numbers. They want points.
So
they want.
If you shift, if I'm a left-handed hitter and they're going to shift when I come to the plate, if I want to bat 400, all I have to do is slap one down the left side, and I'm on base every freaking time.
Well, it makes you wonder why they don't do that.
Yeah. So
and I think the reason is because some guys are just incapable of doing it. I mean, this big fella with the Mets, he pulls everything. He cannot hit the ball to the opposite field. It's just not in his DNA. But I'm with you. I don't think it's a big issue. I don't think it should be. I don't understand why it's even talked about, but I guess that's what they decided to do to try to make the game better. I don't see how it does that, but the only logical thing I can come up with is they're just trying to keep the offense on the field, so to speak.
Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Kentucky Wildcats roll into the O'Connell Center Wednesday. I didn't realize that. Yeah. JC, we got a text on here from Robert on the Titan More text sign. He said, JC, did you like watching any of the XFL games?
Well, I did watch some of your game. I kind of watched a few minutes of the game last night. It looked like Florida A&M was playing with the orange and green. I guess that would be your Seattle Sea Dragons.
They lost.
And yeah, they did. And I think you said the Battlehawks were the supposed best team. But you know what? Wade Phillips and the Houston Roughnecks have not lost since being an XFL franchise. They're 5-0. Did you know that?
I didn't, but he wasn't the coach then.
Yeah, that's true. But they are 5-0. They haven't lost a game.
Yeah. So, I think the favorites to win the league were Seattle and St. Louis. And St. Louis, I don't know if you saw this, JC, but this is how crazy this league is, because St. Louis they'd had like 80 yards of offense the entire game, minute 25 left in the game. They're down 15-3. A minute 25, they're down 15-3.
Yeah.
They score a touchdown. They go for the 3-point conversion, and they make it, okay? So that makes it 15-12, a 9-point game. I mean, they scored 9 points on that possession. Okay?
Yeah.
You can either do a regular onside kick, or you can do a 4th and 15 from your own 35. If you convert it, it's like getting the onside kick. Now, remember, this is all within a minute. They get the 4th and 15, and they go down and win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well, who turned the switch on? I wish I had seen that, but I had heard that sequence I'd read something on Twitter about it. But I know it's amazing. You go an entire game ineffective, and then in a minute 25, you can't be stopped.
But the crazy thing is how they did it. I mean, when you're down 15-3 with a minute 25 in real football,
so the rules let it.
You're like, there's no way you can win the game. But they had a 9-point possession that cut it to 15-12. And then they get a 4th and 15, which is equivalent to your decision of whether you want to go onside kick or try the 4th and 15. They make it and go down and score and throw a touchdown to Ricky Proehl's son, which they didn't. I mean, they got dominated the whole game, but they found a way to win. And it's just crazy when you got to, normally you can say, okay, this is a 2-possession game, and it really isn't, because sometimes your math is different in the XFL than it is in real football because of the 1, 2, the 1, the 3, and the 2-point conversion. So it's crazy. But anyway, JC, have a great trip wherever you are in the world, and we will talk to you on Wednesday. We got to get to Seth Harp.
All right. See you then, bud. Thanks.
All right, that's JC joining us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll be joined by Seth Harp. Take over. He's coming out of the bullpen, folks. You're watching and listening to Podup with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER,
hey guys.
UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town
Can you hear
Center,
me?
Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Little adjusting going on here. Seth Harp, Harp on Sports, here for the second half of Pot Up with Matthews in the morning, courtesy of the Titan MRI hotline. Well, what do we have in store for you as I come out of the bullpen to relieve JC and Shane here? I guess, gosh, we're in the final stages, aren't we? We're getting close to the final stages of February. March right around the corner. Hard to believe. Gator Baseball, first weekend series in the rearview mirror. What we learned in the Charleston Southern Series is this team now gets ready to recycle that rotation. And I thought they were impressive. I always pump the brakes after the first weekend, good or bad. So we're going to look at that. Also, Daytona 500. Dud. Was it Daytona dud? Let's face it. Longest race ever. Double overtime. Everything that goes into this thing now. Why this has lost its luster. And also, I wasn't aware of this. Maybe you were. All the recruiting budgets, or at least the top 10 recruiting budgets in college football. USA Today had an article about how much Georgia spends. Now we start to see how much everybody else spends and how really outside of the top 5, well, everybody's dwarfed compared to really Georgia. And then you have A&M and Tennessee, and then kind of everybody else. So we're going to look at all of those things here coming up on the second half of the show today. Again, Seth Harp from Harp on Sports. You can always check out my stuff at harponsports.com or the Harp on Sports podcast and everything that falls under that umbrella. Okay, where to start? Well, let's double dose the Gators first here. And of course, if you want to be a part of it, you got any questions for us, feel free, fire away. I'll be more than happy to read them on Facebook. And it's just that simple. Just fire them off on Facebook. And as long as it's relevant, I had a couple people write me last week saying, Seth, you don't answer my questions. Well, as long as it feeds the form of the discussion we're having, I'll be more than happy to read it as long as it's relevant. Of course, Facebook Live questions brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Let's start off with Gator basketball, then I'll go into Gator baseball really quick. Basketball, let's face it, we saw with Arkansas, it's done. It's done. Any twinkle of hope to make the NCAA tournament's gone. You kind of knew it, but the way that this team, I guess you would have said, battled against Ole Miss once Colin Castleton got hurt, you said to yourself, okay, well, maybe there's something there. maybe this team will look a little bit different now that he's gone. Maybe they'll rally behind him, and they did for the last 5 minutes of the Ole Miss game, but the Arkansas game, no. And now the question is, can this team finish above 500 and make the NIT? That's where we are now. What does this team do? Final 6 games, and what does he do? What does Todd Golden Company do down the stretch to grow towards next season? That's where we are now. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar to when it's a bad example, but it's the best example I can give you. It's kind of like when the Raiders decided that they were done with Derek Carr in the NFL. They're like, okay, we're done with Derek Carr. We're moving on. We know he's not going to be here next year. And let's see what we have here. And Josh McDaniels down the stretch, the last month of the year, last few weeks, they saw what they could do. Now, that's similar to this and not exactly the same circumstances. But this team now, let's face it, as I look you in the eye, well, they're done. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament. And you kind of knew that it was, that margin was razor thin anyway, but now we know it's a reality. Now the question is, how competitive are they down the stretch? What do? Do they show signs of glimpse and maybe some brilliance like they did against Tennessee? Although that Tennessee upset, what's Tennessee lost 4 of their last 6? Doesn't look as strong as it used to be. Greg firing off. Seth, how do you feel Todd Golden did in the portal? I mean, average. Basketball is such a different beast than football, because basketball, you can turn it around with 2 players. Football, if you get an elite quarterback, you can make it competitive and make it good. But in basketball, you turn it, you can. I mean, you're a Sweet 16 team with 2 elite players. Look, a couple years ago, what Oral Roberts did. You find the right guys, you can turn it around with 2 guys. And that's not to be said. Who knows who's going to be upset at the end of the year? That's just it. At the end of March, who knows who's going to want to leave what team? Who's upset? They didn't get enough playing time. Who decides that they think they want to enter the NBA draft, but then they don't? So when it comes to Gator basketball, recruiting, all of those things, they're not where you want them to be. They're not where they need to be. But to me, once you get into the summer and you see who's coming in and then see who's upset with their current situation, then you gauge it a little bit more. But let's face it, it's a reality Monday. And on this reality Monday, we know the basketball team is not an NCAA tournament team. And they'll hang on for dear life to be an NIT team. Okay. Baseball, come out and sweep Charleston Southern. What do you gauge out of that? Well, you get your rotation set up. You feel good about, kicking the teeth in of a team that's okay. And look, there's some merit in that. I mean, we talk about tune-up games. Used to have them in college football, college baseball. Look, Florida started the season against Miami the last few years. And this year they chose the route of, a team that we can thump around a little bit. Baseball is such a jaunt, right? You play 70 games when it's all said and done if you get all the way to the College World Series. So, I mean, if you're in that 70 game threshold or whatever, or close to it, the first 3 games of the year, I'm not going to get hung up on. It's not like college football where if you go, cupcake, pastry out of the gate, you're not doing much. You're not really learning a lot. This, they got everything set up. I was surprised that at least Smoke or Sproat, how many pitches Sproat threw on Monday night. John Brock says, last year we started against Liberty and got our feelings hurt. I'll take a cupcake. Yeah, look, it's okay. Yeah. Liberty was a good team last year. And were they a great team? No, they were good teams. Good, great, excellent, elite. I've got different, tiers. Good, you make the college or you make the NCAA tournament. Great, you win in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, elite. We'll go over all that systematic stuff someday when we're chatting out here when we get a little bit deeper into baseball season. But what it is, okay, you got 3 wins under your belt. What did you learn? You learned you can whip up on a bad team. Okay. Healthy. When this team stays healthy, they're going to be tough. They're going to be right up there. They are. They're going to be right up there. But just like, Tennessee struggled this weekend, I don't read too much. Oh, my God. No. They had the best record in baseball last year, and they didn't even make College World Series. So I don't get too worked up about this stuff. Even when you get into SEC play, I think you really can't get a good gauge of baseball teams in this conference across the board about where you are until late March, early April. And even then, I don't know how much of a gauge you can get, but I think it's early April before you really you want to stay healthy. So I guess the most important part of February is you stay healthy. Stay healthy. And if you can stay healthy, you're going to be fine. So they go out and they drilled some teams. Okay. Like I said, I was a little surprised that Sproat threw as many pitches as he did Friday night. But these guys know their staffs more than I do. They do. So I think, pitch limits, and when you've got so many games and everything that you have coming up in SEC play, I think right around 60 to 65 for your starting pitchers, and then 75, and then work your way up there. But again, it was a nice solid weekend, nice solid start for the baseball team. And if you're the number 2 team in the country, or number 1 team in the country, or top 5 team in the country, you should sweep Charleston Southern. You should 10-run them a couple times. And they did. The Gator baseball team did what a number 2 ranked team in the country should be doing. So good for them on that front. But that's a good, expectations are here. And weekend 1, they lived up to those expectations. So there you go. Again, you want to be a part of the show. Of course, I'm joining you courtesy of the Titan MRI hotline. Also, Facebook Live questions, Meldon Law. You can fire them off. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. And while we're at it, quick reminders to everyone out there. It's going to be a busy week on the station that I run, of course, ESPN Gainesville, WRUF 98.1 FM 850 AM WRUF. What do we have this week? I think we go baseball, Tuesday, Wednesday, women's college basketball Thursday. I know we have softball and baseball Friday, softball and baseball on Saturday, and baseball again on Sunday as softball heads out west tournament. They play UCLA. Is that Thursday night? They play UCLA like at 10:15. I think it is. Yeah, it's going to be that type of week. So it was that type of week last week. A lot of baseball, a lot of softball. So those things will be front and center again. Of course, Podup with Matthews in the morning is a service of Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right. Help home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. That's 352-244-0840. Okay. I wanted to pivot from this into these recruiting budgets. I know some of this has been out a couple days now, but going from top to bottom, USA Today with to me, we knew some of the money. We knew how much Georgia was spending. At least for a couple weeks now, we've had that number of 4.5 million. Also seeing the recruiting budgets, college football. This is across the board college, for these college entities, how much they spend recruiting across the board. Georgia, 4.5 million, A&M 2.98, Tennessee 2.92, Texas 2.44, Bama 2.32. That's how much in millions. That's how much each of those programs are paying for recruiting. And it's one of these things that's so vastly important. It's not the only thing, but it's a good chunk of everything, isn't it? I mean, you don't have the right ingredients, you're not going to be able to make a cake. And Kirby Smart in Georgia spends almost twice as much. Kirby Smart in Georgia almost spends twice as much as Alabama does in recruiting. 4.5 million, 2.32. Almost twice as much. And right now, it shows, doesn't it? It shows. Alabama, still an elite football program, but with the money that Georgia's spending and the fact that you can see all this in USA Today, the list of how much money all these programs are spending. And then, I think Michigan is the most in the Big Ten. Michigan and Ohio State are the most in the Big Ten. Whoever spends the most in recruiting usually has success. The only team here that I guess you would say didn't have success this year would have been A&M. And it's not always going to be an indicator. The most money that you spend doesn't always indicate success. It doesn't. There's some real estate that you buy or things that you invest in and you spend money on that doesn't necessarily work. Doesn't, make you as much money as flipping properties here or there. But the way I look at this, And this includes what? Transportation, meals, lodging, events. When you see this money, you look at schools and contracts with their television networks and how much money that they're bringing in. And you start to ask yourself, okay, the SEC is going to dole out close to $60 million per team in the next 24 months. In the next 5 years, they're going to be around $80-90 million per team. The Big Ten, once USC and UCLA hits, is going to be $100 million per team. What do you do with the money? Do you buy shiny object, slide at Clemson, barbershop, arcade, or do you take that money and reinvest it in the players? Georgia sits around and looks at this, and I give Georgia a ton of credit. I do. Georgia says the money that we make, we're going to take that money, whether it's $51 million from our television network, whatever we're going to do, and we are going to take not even 10%. When you take a step back and you think about this, Georgia is investing less than 10% of the TV money that they have in bringing in new players. Think about that. Less than 10% of the money that Georgia has made. Not only this is Georgia, this is everybody. It's way less than 10%. Some of these schools, it's 2%. When the money you make with television money is $50 million per school, and you decide, Georgia decides $50 million per school, okay, $4 million, that's 10%, 9%. Georgia invests 9% of the money that they made this year in recruiting. 9%, only 9%. We're going to build a new jumbotron, and we're going to put new seat cushions in, and we're going to build a new statue over here. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to build a new complex for, think about like the tens of millions of dollars that are spent on new luxury suites and luxury boxes in certain stadiums, TVs in front of your seats, the closer you get to the field. Georgia has decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to spend that money on you, young man, instead. It makes sense. So when you see these recruiting numbers and the money, and again, it's a great article in USA Today, how much money that is coming in for each of these schools. And they have the top 5 schools: Georgia at $4.5 million, A&M at 2.98, Tennessee at 2.92, Texas 2.44, Bama 2.32. Just want to give you that. What's Florida? Florida's around what? 2 million. So Florida, what? 4%? 4% of the TV money. This is just TV money. This isn't season ticket sales. This isn't merchandise. Okay. This isn't luxury suites. This isn't these aren't donations. This is just TV money. I'm just using TV money as an example. The money goes up when you start doing season tickets and everything else that comes in. Georgia has decided, you know what? 9% of the money that we make on TV is going to go to bringing in players. 9%. Without players, everybody loves to root for the name on the front of the jersey, right? Oh, the name on the front of the jersey, the name on the front of the jersey. Gang, the name on the back of the jersey is why you win titles, not the name on the front. The name on the front makes you feel good inside about where you went to school. The name on the back is what fills the trophy cases. Facts. Right? Florida didn't win national championships because of the jersey and the name on the front of the jersey. They won national championships because the name on the back of the jersey said Tebow. The name on the back of the jersey said Pouncey. The name of the back of the jersey said Hernandez. The name of the back of the jersey, yeah, so on. So, yeah, I kind of get it, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. John, via the Meldon Law Facebook Live question. John Brock, how long before that TV money starts going to the players? Yeah. I'm glad you, John, I'm glad you asked that. I am, because it leads me into the next thing that I've been saying for years. Been saying I will begin my 3rd year. I'll begin my 3rd year here at the University of Florida, running ESPN Gainesville on April 1st. There is going to be a school that decides to pay the players. You know, everybody doesn't like guys necessarily transferring, doesn't like players leaving early. It's easy. You make them employees and you make them sign contracts. I have a contract, right? Coaches have contracts. When we just have a scholarship contract, it's different. You make them employees, 1099 them. They have to actually, contracts. Okay, you have to compete in 22 games in order to receive X amount of dollars. So you that stuff. And will you get sued? Yeah, NCAA may sue you. Take that to the Supreme Court, see if you win. There's going to be a school that pays them. Watch. There's going to be a school that pays them. It's just a matter of time. And the first school that pays their players is going to be successful. Are they going to get sued? Yep. Are they going to win? Yep. There's going to be a school that does it. Vince writing in. Hello. We're talking about money. It funds non-revenue sports, which are 80% of athletic scholarships. Of course, the money funds that you bring in, TV revenue funds, non-revenue sports. Of course it does. Didn't say it didn't. I'm just telling you, Georgia has decided to spend more of their TV money on players than on fancy, shiny objects. Slides in the locker room, barbershops. Georgia's decided, you know what, we're going to spend $4.5 million a year on recruiting rather than $2 million at Florida. Rather than $2.3 million. Georgia almost doubles Alabama's recruiting budget. That's why Georgia gets the best players. They spend more money on them. This is not even to do with NIL either. Think about this. This has not even to do with NIL. When I mentioned the recruiting numbers, the first thing that people say is we got to bump up our money. We got to bump up our money. We got to spend more money in recruiting. But if I did that with NIL, you'd be like, no. Still goes to the same pot, doesn't it? Still goes to enticing players to come to your school. Chris writes in, if Georgia's spending on players but not shiny objects, it begs the question, what are they spending money on exactly? They are spending more money on recruiting visits. They are spending more money on lodging. They are spending more. They're taking their athletes out to steak dinners, taking out 10 family members out for dinners. They are doing it better than Florida. They are. That's why they're winning more. Facts. I think people have a tough time sometimes understanding that 17, 18-year-olds are mercenaries. You love your school. Yeah, I love it with all my heart. It's my alma mater. It's not theirs. They are interested in them. You are interested in you. They are interested in them. They're interested in what place is going to get me to the next level and pay me the most en route to the next level. Georgia just does it better. They do. They spend more money on it. If I gave you $4.5 million, if I gave you $500,000 to build a house, and I had $250,000 to build a house, isn't your house going to be nicer than mine? True. Okay. Let's dive into a couple more things here before we wrap up this Monday edition. Of course, Podup with Matthews in the morning is a service of QC Kinetics. If you have joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, you need to check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Not surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics with locations in Ocala, now open in Gainesville, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. The Daytona 500, wanted to shift gears here and wrap up with this. Is a dud. This is a race. I'm an Indy boy, grew up in Indy. You know, looking back in the days of the Brickyard and what that race meant to growing NASCAR as a sport. You know, I grew up IndyCar in the 80s, the Andretti's, the Unsers. That's, you know, Fittipaldi's, Rick Mears. Yeah, that's the generation that I grew up with. And then, of course, NASCAR. You know, you think of the Waltrops and the Earnhardts and the Wallaces and everything that went into them growing into what they became and what that sport became. Jeff Gordon comes in, and Jeff Gordon helped make that sport a national sport. It was a regional pocketed sport. It was a Southeastern sport. And then, or Southeastern sporting event, whatever you want to look at it. And then it grew national. It became a nationwide sport. And then what happened is the nationwide appeal left, so the sport has started to shrink. And it's now, to me, back, I don't even know if it's back where it was in the 80s. You know, you still have the Bushes, right? But other than that, I mean, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., okay, that's nice. But I know Ricky about as he was dating Danica Patrick for a couple of years. Your names are gone. They are. And I mentioned earlier, name on the front of the jersey is great, but name on the back of the jersey is why people watch. And there's just not that many interesting drivers anymore. In the race, even in years where the drivers haven't been great, it was the longest Daytona 500 ever, double overtime. And then there's a wreck on the final lap, and then you have to wait 20 seconds. Your eyes are deceiving you. Whoever is in the lead was on the back when the wreck took place. And of course, the cameras always pan to the wreck and not who's in the lead. So it goes to the wreck, and then it comes back up front. You're like, okay, who had the lead there? Who had the lead? It takes about 15 seconds. And then all of a sudden, the guy that wins doesn't cross the finish line first because the winner had already been determined by when the wreck was, even though we went into double overtime. And it can end on a wreck on the last lap, but it can't end on a caution. It's like, oh, guys, oh my gosh, what have you done? What have you done? It used to be pure in the sense that whoever finished at the end of the 500th mile when the checkered flag comes out wins. But that's not the case anymore. And they've twerked it. And I get why you got to evolve as a sport. Every sport evolves. Football does it better than anybody else. Baseball slowly starting to adapt. The rules committee gets together and change overtime rules in football, change first down rules in football, change extra points in football, shifts, how many guys can line up at certain line on this side of the line of scrimmage, how many guys can go in motion. All these things have changed over time. The scrum, the rugby scrum that we saw in Super Bowl in the last few years, one of the biggest impacts is running backs being able to push quarterbacks over the line of scrimmage for first downs on 4th and shorts and 3rd and shorts. The rules changes take place all the time. So I get why NASCAR felt the need to change some rules, but it's something that is, boy, I don't know if it's dead, but it's hooked up to the heart monitor and it's getting oxygen and it's intubated and you're watching it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's too bad. And I know there are people, I love it no matter what. Well, I got you hooked. You're hooked. People that, I always say this about fans when they go to sporting events, that people that go to every game, your opinion's meaningless. I've got you hooked. It is. To me, if you're fair weather fans that only show up when they win and then leave when they lose, no, that's called being a good fan. Why am I going to invest money in your poor product? Because of loyalty? No, thank you. No, thank you. Loyal to you. You be loyal to you. Don't be loyal to a bunch of, be loyal to you. If it's a bad product, quit going. Lakers fans are great at this. Bad product, not going. Oh, where's their loyalty? My loyalty is to my pocketbook. I'm going to go, if I'm going to spend money, I want a good product. I'm not going to spend money for an inferior product. Why? Think about being a poor Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I'm going to go watch this team go 63-102. Wouldn't be that, would it, though? It'd be 63-99, wouldn't it? Yeah. 59-103. How about that? Well, are the Pirates going to give us that this year? I'm trying to think who would be the worst team in baseball. The Royals, you got to be loyal to go every single game. That's not loyalty. That's absurdity. So that's where I am with this. Daytona, it's like, come on, give me a reason to go down there again. Or over there, I should say. I was using Jacksonville, always down, right? It shows you how, it's, we're going to go watch. It's too bad. It really, really is, because it was always an elite race, even in years where, just think back like 20 years ago with the Tony Stewarts and the Jimmy Johnsons and the Dale Juniors and the Dale Jarretts and you can go on and the Jeff Gordons and what you had. And now you kind of look around and you're like, and you had a next generation of guys like the Carl Edwardses of the world and even Danica Patrick, and just got out. So it's a sport that desperately needs stars, desperately needs it. Individuality, like golf, individuality works. Tennis, individuality works. There's another sport that's gone by the wayside, right? Individuality works. It's what makes us watch sports. It does. So there you go. All right. So there we go. I got to thank everybody. Got to thank Shane Matthews and Freddie Weeby and everybody for letting me come in out of the bullpen today. I got Gator Baseball Tuesday and Wednesday on ESPN, Gainesville, WRUF, of course, and baseball weekend long. Softball's the West Coast tournament. So we're splicing softball games in where baseball games aren't. So it's going to be a busy lineup once again starting Tuesday. I think starting Tuesday, we have something like 5 baseball games this week, 4 softball games, women's basketball games, squeezing all that stuff in for you all week long on your home of the Gators here in Gainesville. So there you go. Everybody enjoy your Monday. Look forward to hopping back on with you. I know that Shane will be back tomorrow, of course, and Kyle Crooks will be sliding in as well, and I'll be back with you on Thursday. So there you go. Enjoy your Monday. This has been Seth Harp for Podup with Matthews in the morning here on the Podup with Matthews in the Morning Radio Network, along with Freddie Weeby Enterprises. I couldn't hear you guys today, but thank you.